Hi, this is Andy Alley, welcoming all our guests and doctors on our big life-saving and transforming call. You will discover more about our scientific health breakthrough product that is patented and exclusive to you through our company, Galen. This is never-seen-before technology. The product is Emulin, created by our special guest speaker, Dr. Joe Ahrens, who has been nominated twice for the Nobel Prize. To bring up our special guest speaker, Dr. Ahrens, is Dr. John Gluckman. Dr. John Gluckman, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Andy. And again, Dr. Joe, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And basically, the people that are on the call, there's the one thing that they're all very interested in knowing is the story of how you and your partner, Daryl, came to the major research that created this three-component product, Emulin, that has got us all so excited. So tell us your journey.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and I hope that you can hear me very well. Is that true? Okay, great. Well, I started working on this product back in 2001. I had been director of technology for Green Giant previous to that and had been invited to come be the director of research for the Florida Department of Citrus. The idea was to get them on a commercial track so that they could do research that promoted sales of citrus. It's funded by taxes of the citrus growers, and this department is a state agency that promotes citrus. So I got to wondering what I could do, what kind of research, and if you're a good researcher, you start at the market and work backwards. So what is the market saying? What does the market need? And then you conduct the research to support that market angle. One of the things that we noticed that every time the grapefruit diet showed up in the press, that ridiculous diet based on grapefruit and black coffee, as silly as it was, every time it showed up in the press, every couple of years, grapefruit sales took off. So I decided to find out if it really was true and then leverage that. If so, I met a lot of resistance because what if we did the work and proved that it didn't really work? That would be terrible. But I finally convinced the powers that be to do it. And in my office one day comes Daryl Thompson, whose family were longtime citrus growers, and he's particularly interested in grapefruit. He had developed a grapefruit powder, just like garlic is powdered garlic for people that don't actually want to eat garlic for its health benefits. He had made a powdered grapefruit so people could actually take a couple of capsules and have the benefits of a serving of grapefruit. That gave me a great idea. So we took fresh grapefruit juice, and this powdered grapefruit product and put it in a clinical study in California. We actually had it done in California so there would be no bias from Florida research. We had it done at the Scripps Institute in California, and lo and behold, after 3 months, people actually did lose weight just by adding grapefruit to their diet. And it was not just that it filled them up, because we had this powder, we had the juice, we had the fresh fruit, we had placebos. It was a double-blind study. Saw loss of weight and a change in blood glucose levels as well as insulin response. And that was really important to me because it told me that there was a chemical, there was a physiological response. It wasn't just mental, it wasn't just filling you up, but something was going on biochemically in the body. I rushed back to the Florida Department of Citrus and said, look, there's something in here that seems remarkable, and it's probably in all citrus. Something is in citrus that helps carbohydrate metabolism, and I didn't know what it was. Well, they were not very interested in that, so they said, well, it's good information, but we really don't want to go deep into the science, and I just couldn't help. So Daryl Thompson and myself actually resigned from the Florida Department of Citrus, and the two of us started looking into citrus, what was in citrus. We also knew that even though citrus orange juice, grapefruit juice, is very high in sugar, actually more sugar in some orange varieties than there is in Coca-Cola, 33% sugar. But nobody was getting diabetes or overweight condition from drinking citrus juice. There's got to be something in here. So we started digging, looking at different candidates, and our idea was if we could isolate it, not only would that help citrus growers, but we could put that in something like a brownie and make it safe for diabetics. And my partners, mother was diabetic. So we said we could put this in something like a brownie. We could actually find this. If we could find this, we could even put it into a Coca-Cola and make that Coke as safe as orange juice. So we started digging. We started doing computer modeling. We took a family of compounds that were in citrus, and with some computer simulations, we narrowed them down to about 10,000 possible compounds. And then we started challenging those against enzymes that were known to be critical key control points in carbohydrate metabolism, such as starch conversion into simple sugar, absorption of the sugar into the bloodstream, and uptake by muscle tissues, and elimination, and how it got into fat. We had identified that there were 7 key critical control points, and we started challenging all these compounds, thousands of them, against these major enzymes involved in sugar, carbohydrate metabolism in mammals. We finally came to the conclusion that they did exist, and not only that, they were not just in citrus, they were in every fruit or berry that existed that had any type of a carbohydrate load. So they were in mangoes, they were in pineapple, certainly citrus, dark berries. Every time there was a sugar load, there seemed to be this certain family of what we now know are polyphenolics, flavonoids, certain class of flavonoids that always were there. And it occurred to us, they were there as sugar chaperones. We were meant to consume them. Every time you have sugar, you should take in these carbohydrate managers, and it helps the sugar be metabolized, keep it away from where it should not be, and helps it go to where it was intended to be. So we got pretty excited, started further modeling these compounds, got it down to 100, got it down to 10, and finally we got down to 3. That when you took these 3 together and with sugar, your carbohydrate metabolism efficiency skyrocketed. People in our first test, they started losing weight. They felt more energized. Furthermore, we saw that part of the problem in the diet we have today, I'm sure all of you have heard this over the last couple of years, is that refined sugar is a poison. Refined sugar is a poison. That was not our discovery, but it fit exactly well with our hypothesis. And that is that if you take your sugar, the body has to decide, is it a poison or is it an energy source? How does it know? Depends on the sugar chaperones. If you take refined sugar by itself, the body assumes it is poison, like a glucoside, if you want to know that term, that is a poison, like Roundup. And it not only puts the sugar in fat tissue because of the excess calories, but because it's trying to quarantine what it sees as a poison, just like it does the same thing for heavy metals. When it comes across these poisons, it puts them into fat tissue and stores it away. That's one of the functions of fat tissue, is to quarantine poison. And if you had sugar with the sugar chaperones, the body metabolized that sugar as it should, as nature intended. So this is not some compounds that we had discovered that cause weight loss or cover up this problem or that problem. This is a discovery like discovering a new vitamin. It's almost, it's a little funny now. We originally were working on citrus, just like the English a long time ago did not know what was in citrus, but they knew something was in citrus that helped with scurvy. They didn't know what it was. Come to find out, it was vitamin C. So you have to have vitamin C in order to process minerals in your body, just like you have to have vitamin D in order to process calcium. This is a story throughout your body. You must have certain vitamins to process other things in your body. And we have found the one that helps you process carbohydrate. If we had made this discovery in the 50s, this would be classified as a vitamin. But the classification system has changed since then, and we are not allowed to call it a vitamin. So we just call it a carbohydrate manager. And additionally, part of that carbohydrate processing is dealing with inflammation. So if you have a poison in your body, you're just going to eventually cause inflammation. And part of this, these sugar chaperones get the sugar where they need to do, and they control inflammation. And that is the 1-2 hit that inulin is all about. It processes carbohydrate, and it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory.
Dr. Ahrens, I don't think many of us have heard the term anti-inflammatory we always hear anti-inflammatory, but you use anti-inflammatory because that's more the more accurate term for this action.
Well, actually, an anti-inflammatory sub of the molecule's action. It is anti-inflammatory, but you can call it an anti-inflammatory as the item that causes something to be anti-inflammatory. Just anti-inflammatory. It is anti-inflammatory, but it is an anti-inflammatory. So it's very strong anti-inflammatory action. It's an anti-inflammatory. And it's because if you can shut down inflammation, if you can reduce inflammation, you will reduce diseases. Let us look at sugar itself. After taking sugar and your body assumes it's a poison, you become inflamed. Your organs actually become inflamed. Just like you can see on the outside of your hand when you become inflamed from an insect bite or inflamed from poison ivy. Same thing, you can't see it, but the same thing is happening inside your body. If you have poison in your body, even a lot of our own synthetic drugs, if you take them, your body becomes inflamed, it's irritated, it's trying to get rid of it, it's trying to dilute it, it's trying to eat it up. And that constant inflammation over time leads to diabetes. In those persons that are genetically predisposed to that, you become diabetic. You can become obese, and it's not just because of the excess calories. It's because your body is stocking away this sugar into these areas to isolate it. If you continue to take refined sugar throughout your lifetime, you can develop type 3 diabetes. And I invite anyone to Google that, type 3, and what you'll come up with is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is recognized now as a type of diabetes. It's dysfunctional carbohydrate metabolism in the brain. The symptoms of it are these plaques and tangles that we are working on to get rid of the symptoms, but the root cause is constant bombardment with a poison that is refined sugar. The brain can only live on glucose, except in extreme circumstances. The brain lives on glucose. It needs glucose, but it does not want refined glucose. Constant bombardment with refined glucose without sugar chaperones leads to Alzheimer's in those individuals that are so inclined. There's a further story. If this happens in the womb, the fetus itself, the child will be born with type 1 diabetes. So that's the progression right here. Bombarded with sugar in the womb, type 1 diabetes. Bombarded with sugar in adolescence, type 2 diabetes. Bombarded with refined sugar over your lifetime, type 3 diabetes. It is a disease of dysfunctional carbohydrate metabolism. So we did a study on rats, type 1 diabetic rats, no functioning pancreas. We reversed diabetes. We did a human clinical with type 2 diabetic humans. We reversed their diabetes. Now we have a further study going on with a much more expanded group of subjects, and we've had similar results. These were not diabetic people. These were just people that were pre-diabetic. We brought them out from being pre-diabetic. So this is just a remarkable discovery. And I will close this part here by saying people who have taken Emulin because they were overweight or because they had diabetes, we come to find out, they call us up and say, I no longer have arthritis. I no longer have psoriasis. My asthma is reduced. And then athletes call it. I can run further and longer without getting all this pain. For the same amount of carbs, I can run further. Or I can use less carbs and run the same distance. And it's all back to this basic concept of getting rid of this poison by just adding the sugar chaperones and the strong anti-inflammatory effect of Emulin. Now, Emulin does not come from citrus. We did find that our original work, we were working with citrus, but we found much more powerful ones in other fruits and vegetables. We have 3 of these compounds. They each handle a different part of carbohydrate metabolism. One of them takes care of conversion of starch into simple sugars. One of them slows down the absorption of those sugars into your gut. One of them handles the transport of sugar into muscle and brain tissue. Another one stimulates insulin production, and another one reduces gluconeogenesis. So we covered all of these 7 key steps by the combination of these 3. We get one of them from dark berries like muscadine grapes. We get one of them from extract of green coffee beans, and the third one we're getting currently from onion. So We can call it a food extract. They're true, pure food supplements. But as a scientist, I don't care where they come from. Just like vitamin C, you can get it from acerola, you can get it from citrus, you can get it from rose hips, just vitamin C. And we are actually using the molecules themselves. So this isn't just a crude extract of grape. This is refined like at 98% for one of these compounds, each one of them. So we're looking at the molecules themselves, but we can't put the molecules on the label. We have to list the source. So that's why we get them from these areas. So I may not have mentioned everything that I should. You can ask me a question or I'll talk about anything else.
Thank you so much. That's a very comprehensive review. I'd like to open it up. Dr. Ahrens, there's several people that are on the line that have much more of an understanding of the diabetic issue in our society than any of us here. I wonder if Dr. Steve has some questions.
Oh, fantastic.
Do you have some questions for Dr. Ahrens?
No, I thought that explanation was really good. It cleared up, the sources up to the different nutrients and such. And
okay.
I thought it was great.
Okay, good. So what I'm interested in addition to what you've just told us about these amazing ingredients and how they work as carbohydrate chaperones, and we're seeing it, just like you said, we're seeing all kinds of almost serendipitous benefits with weight loss, arthritic pain reduction, better sleep pattern, erectile dysfunction getting cleared up, kinds of things that one would never have expected from just one product. Now, are you surprised, Dr. Ahrens, at all these things that are being reported from this product?
Well, I was surprised 10 years ago, but as I slowly more and more understood the physiology, and for those that you don't know, physiology is a study of life at the cellular level. It's not down to biochemistry, but it's right at the cellular level. Once I found out really what was going on, I saw that 60 or 70% of our diseases are related to inflammation. And we are constantly bombarded with refined sugar. You can't do it. You can't eat without it. And that would mean no bread, no pasta, no beans, even though they're high in protein, no rice, no pita, no hummus, you name it, and there's going to be refined sugar in there. And even if you go back to the heirloom cultivars of these food, like if you went back to ancient sugar cane,
right.
If you got raw sugar, it would have some of these sugar chaperones in it. And in fact, sugar out of the sugar cane does have some sugar chaperones in it. But they are so diluted. We've been concentrating for the last 100 years on just making things bigger and sweeter, and we had no idea about the concept that we were leaving behind the sugar chaperones. And then through the refining process, even any process, it scrapes these away. So there was a very good study done a couple of years ago that compared raw honey, or white refined table sugar, the so-called raw sugar, brown raw sugar, Gamura from sugarcane, and sugarcane juice. And they saw that the more unrefined, the higher sugar chaperones, or the higher the polyphenolic. And it fit right into what we were saying. We are in constant bombardment with refined sugar. You cannot avoid it, even if you try hard. Even if you went out and had a diet of just fruits, raw fruits, there's just not enough in there anymore. They've probably been gone for 10,000 years. And have to supplement your body in order to get them. So you've been under this constant inflammation, and that's where all those diseases pop up. You name it. Look at it. Psoriasis, asthma. These are inflamed tissues. The cause is not just refined sugar, but it's also could be an autoimmune response. What you have, if you can envision this, sandpaper constantly scraping at the microscopic level, sandpaper scraping the insides of your arteries, scraping your areolas, scraping your dermal layer. Then you are wide open for these other attacks, the subsequent attacks, such as asthma, such as psoriasis. So if you can reduce that chronic inflammation, your body is very often able to recover. Now that's the problem with inflammation. Inflammation is very important, of course. A two-step process. There's a lot of sub-steps, but two steps. Your body the vascular system dilates at the source of the patient. That's the redness, that heat you feel. If you can see it on your skin, that's the redness. That's also going on inside where you can't see. And then the second thing is you have a release of white blood cells, about 3 different types, come in there and are looking to consume up, mop up everything in its site in order to get rid of the irritant, whether it is dead invasions from biological attack or it's poison or something that that irritates a particular person. They're looking around for everything. And they do that, and so then after they do the job, they go away and your body returns to normal. Well, with constant inflammation, these soldiers inside your body are constantly chewing, and eventually they attack your own cells. If you could break that cycle, your body can recover. And we will hopefully one day go through every single disease and have a treatment for each one. There's just not enough time right now to do it all, so we're concentrating on what we do know right now, and that is we have low inflammation and we have a management of carbs. And no, I'm no longer surprised when they say, I no longer have arthritis. Is that inflammatory? Yes, it is. Well, I no longer have, is that inflammatory? Yes. So if somebody told me that, it cured my broken bone, I don't know if I would believe that, but I think that when they tell me they've been cured of something, and I'm not claiming to cure anyone of anything, but when they tell me, I understand exactly what has happened. We've reduced that pressure in their body, and their body was able to recover. And everyone listening on this call, everybody in the world needs this product. It's not something you have to convince anyone take. Everyone needs it. You think you're in good health? You can run a 5-minute mile. Take this product and you run a 4.5-minute mile. You didn't know that you were in such bad condition because your body has accepted this low, constant, chronic inflammation that's leading to subpar health performance.
Well, good. So I understand the story of inflammation, obviously, and the tendency of the body's response to any kind of irritant or toxin is it goes in and starts fighting, and the various white cells, macrophages, etc. come in. But quite often the body doesn't know how to stop that cycle, so it gets out of control, and that's where you get all those autoimmune diseases like lupuses and multiple sclerosis and the psoriasis and whatever. Now, in your own experience, on a testimonial level and anecdotal level, are you seeing people really improving conditions such as lupus, MS, and other things like that?
Yes, every disease that you can name that's inflammatory related, inflammation related, people have reported me have improved. I can say my own personal stories. My uncle started taking this to help lose a little weight because I convinced him that high blood sugar level is directly correlated with excess weight. He was a little overweight. Took it. He was also supposed to be going in for knee replacement surgery because he had severe arthritis, and he got to the doctor, the surgeon, and they canceled the surgery because he improved so much. And now, a year later, he never needs surgery and he's just back to jogging. Those stories come to me all the time, all related to the inflammation. Like lupus, that's absolutely an autoimmune inflammatory disease. And, even high blood pressure, if you can get back to the source, it's probably related to a heart condition that is antagonized by some type of inflammatory response. So, yes, I get them no longer surprised. And if you have a disease, again, I'm not claiming to cure any disease. No, I'm just putting the body back to normal. It's just like take vitamin D and your calcium, your bones will get stronger. I'm just putting you back where you should be, introducing a vitamin that should be recognized, and hopefully eventually it will be recognized as essential for healthy life.
Dr. Nelson, good. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Ahrens, you mentioned in that last call about type 1. Could you just expand on that a little bit, diabetes?
Yeah, good.
Can you hear me fine?
And there's a question from Dr. Nelson in California about type 1 diabetes. Yeah, okay, good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Furthermore, to our discovery that components of amylin, specific 3 flavonoids, they not only were involved in carbohydrate metabolism, but a survey of several enzymatic systems in the body surprisingly showed a docking site for in particular two of the compounds. And this was very puzzling to us. So we would look at an enzyme that was involved in fingernail growth, and there was a docking site. You can identify this with certain computer programs. You look at the molecules involved, and there's a docking site perfectly fits a couple of these molecules. And we are going to do, I would say we have determined, I have to do more studies than this, but it's our theory that these plant molecules grew up with us. That is, the body uses these particular bioflavonoids in several enzymatic systems. They're really more than carbohydrate managers. They're managers of a variety of systems. So in our first study with type 1 rats, these are diabetic rats. They've been treated with a chemical that kills the pancreas. They have no functioning pancreas. And we gave them inulin, and they survived. That alone was remarkable. I mean, how are they surviving? Where are they getting their insulin from? And secondly, these were diabetic rats. I mean, they had blood sugar levels of 300 and 400. Where were they? How were they living? How were they surviving? So I was talking to a chemist at Abbott Labs, and he actually said, there's no other explanation other than you are rejuvenating beta cells. Well, that's quite remarkable, but we were not then and are not now in a position to undertake such a study, but we just filed that in the back of our mind. About a half a year ago, a scientist, an MD associated with Galen and Holista in Malaysia, did a study where found that component inulin stimulated stem cells to turn into beta cells. Well, now that was just a in vitro test, just a petri dish test. But that's really what other explanation is that these apparently through some unknown factor causing stem cells to turn into beta cells, and beta cells are what produce insulin.
Well, that was one of my questions about the beta cell regeneration, which you answered. If you take the product, is the 3 times a day just because people usually eat 3 meals a day?
Yeah, that's it. We've had bottles with 2 times 375 because people said, well, they don't want to take one to lunch with them at work, so okay, take it morning and night. 3 times a day, easy to remember with meals, because you could take them all at one time. After a couple of days, it builds up in your body. It's like vitamin C. You don't have to take vitamin C 3 times a day. Vitamin D, none of these that many times a day.
I just wanted to know, the before meals, is it because you want it on an empty stomach or because you want it dissolved in the body before you take food, the carbohydrate thing?
Okay, there are 2 issues here, chronic and acute. If you have never had inulin, if you never had inulin and you have fasted and you take it before or with your meal, it will reduce the caloric impact of that meal immediately. And so that's how we did our first test. We had them take it with meals after they had fasted, and none of them had ever had inulin compared to a placebo. And we had a drop of 27 and 33% of sugar, so the glycemic impact was lowered. But after you have taken it a week, you have enough in your bloodstream that it will not matter. You could take them all in the day, morning and the night, because we're 750 milligrams we know saturate most human beings based on the amount of blood they have and the bioavailability. 750 milligrams. You start taking more than that, you just eliminate it through the urine, or it will transpose to the skin. So there's no reason to take more than that. You could probably take less. I mentioned to someone recently that we have had anecdotal evidence that actually an MD who just took 1 a day, he had just as good effect. But I didn't do that study yet. We do have a study going on right now where we have done a large dose range, so we may be able to reduce the amount consumed. But it doesn't matter. After a week, as long as it's in your body, it has a half-life of about 5 or 6 days, so it won't matter.
If someone forgets a dose, so they're underdosed one day, should they take more the next day or just go back to the regular dose?
Go back
they can't
to the
absorb
regular dose.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't absorb it. They cannot double up.
And I have one other question regarding the M versus the C. If somebody is a pre-diabetic and ends up taking the M instead of the C, and because you didn't know they were pre-diabetic, and their glucose levels go up, since this is an anti-inflammatory, but the glucose levels go up because you're releasing it into the circulation, are you destroying the effect of the inulin, in a sense, on the inflammatory effect?
Well, there is still a very good benefit, and in the long term, you'll see a benefit. However, you will have elevated blood glucose levels, and we're trying to get rid of that, particularly with pre-diabetics and about diabetics. I mean, basically, it's just definition of what your fasting blood sugar levels are, what your long-term H1AC levels are, and what your 2-hour postprandial levels are, and it's based on blood sugar level. So what you said is correct. In the M, there is more quercetin, and quercetin does cause glucose to leak and triglycerides to leak out of fat tissue through lipolysis, and you have an elevated blood sugar. So we proved that ourselves. I didn't know what was going on originally. Our first human experiment, I gave everyone M, basically, and the blood sugar went up, and it didn't make any sense. And I found an old Russian paper that had mentioned something like this. I was only able to get the abstract. So we did a test ourselves, a real small one, 10 people, fasting, and gave them, placebos and quercetin and amylin. And yes, sure enough, even with fasting, the blood sugar elevated. It wasn't dangerously elevated, but it did go up 10 or 20 points over the people that were on the placebo. So for long term, you need to, if you have a concern over blood sugar levels and for the maximum effect, you need to be on C. It has less quercetin in it. If you're generally healthy, especially if you're athletic, you take the M and it will soup you up. There's no stimulants in here, but you'll certainly feel energy because you have a release of glucose, and that's exactly what athletes need. It's very interesting, since you seem to know quite a bit on the subject, that myricetin, which is one of the components, myricetin, when we say myricetin causes an increase of glucose being transported into muscle tissue, that's really an indirect system. What happens is myricetin binds to the adrenal cortex, and there is a unidentified signal that goes from the cortex to the membrane of muscle tissue, and then in the presence of insulin, more glucose transporter 4s are transported to the cell membrane, outer cell membrane. So you can see exactly why that would work. If you are in a fight or flight situation, you not only need glucose, but you need the doors to be open. So it happens all at once. The glucose becomes made available and the doorways open up. And where does it happen? Adrenal cortex, which is the manufacturing site of several other hormones involved in the fight or flight situation. One of our major shareholders in our company, ATM Metabolic, part owner of the Boston Red Sox, and he's made available to us several players. And the best thing is we got into the Retired Professional Baseball Players Association. These guys train all their lives at such a high level, and they're competitive. If anyone knows about pro sports, it's just so far beyond any of amateurs. They have beaten their bodies up beyond repair, really. So when they get into the 40s and 50s, they are arthritic and they're pre-diabetic, and they're putting on. So we got to work with some of them, and they turned into kids again. Unfortunately, one guy broke his back because he took up hockey at age 60. And also Serena Williams takes this product. We're trying to get her to endorse it, but you just have to. If you want her to play, you got to pay.
Dr. Ahrens, I have a question that was posed, and she wants to know how people should integrate amylin with metformin or other medication. Is it just a matter of testing and reducing the medicine?
Well, I'm no one's physician. I'm no one's medical doc, but let's use common sense here. Your body returns to normal, and you are processing carbohydrates efficiently. Your blood sugar levels would lower. If you add insulin, metformin on top of that, could bring you into a hypoglycemia, too low of blood sugar. It's not because of the amylin. If you give amylin to a completely so-called healthy person, not lower blood also, but it's like giving metformin or insulin to a healthy person. Their blood sugar is going to drop because of the medicine. So monitor your blood glucose levels if you have that concern, and work with your doctor to reduce the amount of medication. And most of them won't want to do it because they'll say, I have you stabilized with it, like an insulin. You know how many shots to take. You take your blood, you see what your blood sugar is, and you give yourself a shot, and you've been living fine for 5 and 10 years. Let's not upset the boat here. Let's not rock the cradle. And they turn a deaf ear to it. But, why not get healthy to begin with and not need those medications? Amylin itself does a better job, or at least as equal, but in most cases better than metformin. Metformin has two major effects. The most prominent one is the inhibition of gluconeogenesis. Your body has accepted the high glucose level for years or decades, whatever it is, 150, 200, it sees that as normal. And if you try to reduce your blood sugar levels, the body will get around it, try to make new sugar. Even if you cut your sugar consumption, the body will make new sugar out of non-sugar molecules. That's called gluconeogenesis, new sugar birth. And metformin, that's its main effect. Also, that's one of the effects of inulin. So it's kind of redundant. And the body just tries to get back where it was. And that's why inulin works. After a while, lowered blood sugar, your body accepts the lowered blood sugar as normal. It doesn't fight like it would the first few days.
Okay, fantastic. Andy, do you want to come back in?
Thank you very much, Dr. Gluckman. This is Andy Alley on behalf of all our doctors, Dr. Aiken, Dr. Lundell, Dr. Gluckman, and our special guest speaker, Dr. Joe Ahrens. We appreciate your time and keeping an open mind. Your next step is to get back to the person that shared this life-changing information with you and let them know that you want your inulin. Thank you.